So MasterPages were introduced in ASP.NET 2.0, so they've been around for a while, and it improves a way to maintain consistency within a site, and also reduces the amount of code that's necessary to create a site, both executable code and HTML code, markup code. And a master page is a template that provides a complete page definition. So it includes the template markup and controls. And pages then, in fact, inherit the layout from the master page, and those pages are called content pages. And the way it works is the content pages that inherit from the master page contains placeholders, and then the content pages can override the contents of the placeholders that have been defined by the master pages. So typically what you'll see is a main area in the template where the main content of that page will go, and that will be defined by the master page. So typically a master page would have things like navigation, maybe like a top navigation, left-hand navigation, logo, header, footer, that type of stuff. And some of that stuff may have placeholders defined in it and may not. But typically the main content area in the middle of all the basically the middle square of that region of the page will be defined a placeholder, and that's where you overwrite the content. So what we're going to look at now is just building how regular good old ASP.NET master pages work. Okay, in this demo I'm going to go ahead and open up a new Visual Studio project, and we're going to make an ASP.NET website that uses master pages. So I'm going to click on New Website. It's going to be an ASP.NET empty website. I'm just going to take the defaults here for the project location, and I'll go ahead and view the Solution Explorer. So I have an empty site, so what I want to do then is I'm going to add a master page to the site, and I'll take the default masterpage.master, and you can see here it does create a master page. It has the master directive on top. It does have a code behind file, masterpage.master.cs. It's typical ASP.NET stuff. And then this is the interesting part here. This content placeholder is for the head, and this one is just titled Content Placeholder 1. That's very important because this is the part that allows our future pages to override the contents. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the cursor right into the div. I'm going to add a sitemap to the site just to demonstrate navigation. It's a good way to demonstrate how master pages work. So we'll add a sitemap, and put a couple nodes in here. So the main node is going to be home, that's the parent, and then page1.aspx, title will be page 1. A little tilde symbol just means in ASP.NET it uses that token to translate to the relative path. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my master, and I'm going to go into the toolbox, and I'm going to go into navigation, and I'm going to insert a menu. I'll just drag that in there. I actually got dragged into the wrong spot. And I just switched into design view here, and I'm going to go ahead and configure this. right now this menu is not hooked up to anything. It doesn't have, it's not binding to any data source. So we're going to create a data source for it. And it's going to get the data from our sitemap that we added to the site. And it's just going to call it sitemap data source 1, default naming convention. So I'll say OK. So that has added that. And notice how as soon as that happened, it's reading the XML from the sitemap file. So here's the sitemap file. Here's the first node is home. And you can see here that is the first node there. So in the source, you don't see that. You just see the menu and the data source ID. And then here's the sitemap data source element. So it's pretty standard. So now what I want to do is I have a master page. So I'm going to add a page to the site. And I'm going to add a web form. I'm going to select master page because I want to choose the master page. I want it to use a master page. So I'll click add, and by default we only have one master page, so it's choosing it for us. So I'm saying OK. So now I have default.aspx. And if I go into design view in here, notice how I'm getting the sitemap here, but that it's got the little the symbol for not being able to edit it. So the old do not allow symbol, or not allowed. So I'm not allowed to touch this area, but I can touch this area here because this is content placeholder 1. So if we look at the source, all I have in here in this page, there's no body, there's no head or anything like that. That's all on the master page. I'm just overriding the placeholders. So you can see here, these have to match up exactly. So this ID, content placeholder 1 and head, they match up identically to how they're named in the master page. So in the master page, the ID of the content placeholder is head, and then this is content placeholder 1. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, let's see what happens if I change that to 2 and I try to compile this. See how it turned to a squiggly. It's letting me know that can't find content placeholder 2 in the current master page or pages. So if I try to run this, I'll set it default as a start page. Now if I try to run it, it's going to blow up because it's saying, hey, you never defined content placeholder 2 in the master page, so I can't run to this page for you. So if I change that back, then I can actually put some content in here as well. Now when I run this, we can see what's saying. This is the home page. And I can do other things here. So this is in the master page. I can add other content here if I want to. I could put a paragraph here, so I could say this is master page content, and that's going to show up on every single one of my pages. So if I go back here, let's just run this again. It's going to show up because it's in the master page. So we don't have this defined in page 1, but it shows up because it is defined in the master page. I can add other pages in here. Let's just go ahead and add page 1 and page 2. Page 1.aspx. Choose master. Okay. now add page 2. Notice how I went to the default there for creating a page, and I didn't tell it to do a master page. So I just want to show you that you do need to specify that. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to do add new item, web form, page 2. Now this time I'll get the dialog to choose the master page, and it'll put the right markup in there for me. And here I can put in my markup here. Okay, I'm going to click on home and page 1. And oh, it looks like I used the I didn't define the sitemap correctly, so that's okay. I'm going to go in and I'm going to edit the sitemap. I don't need the tildes here for page 1 and page 2 since they're relative, so I'll modify that. We can go ahead and run this again. So now when I go to page 1, so right now we're on the home page. I click page 1, it's showing this is page 1. I'm going to click page 2, showing it's page 2. So that's just a general overview of how MasterPages work in ASP.NET, and next we'll look at how SharePoint takes that a few steps further.